Welcome to the Porch. I'm Lindsay Baccardo, keynote speaker and virtual presenter for organizations who want to build emotionally intelligent and multi-generational teams. I truly believe that the modern day leader has a moral obligation to grow personally and lead others from a grounded and healthy and healed place. So you're going to hear me bring on psychologists, neuroscience experts, storytellers, emotional intelligence researchers, people who are really making a measurable, tangible difference in the workplace. This is where I bring my favorite thought leaders on these topics to teach and mentor us. And I am so lucky I've got someone I really admire on the porch today. April Shprintz, thank you for joining me.
Oh, I am honored to be here. And even better, this seems like it's going to be a really good time.
We're going to have a blast. Now, if you haven't met April yet, Sam, would you put her LinkedIn link so people can follow her on LinkedIn, because she is the creator of Generosity Culture, which is a business accelerator. And it's not what you think. It's not more hustle and grind. It's take better care of people. We're going to be talking about that today. She's a keynote speaker. She's an author of Magic Blue Rocks. I read this book while I was walking my dog. I was listening to some of it and I'm crying. People probably thought I was crying over picking up dog poop. No, I was crying over April's book. It's fantastic. She's going to be talking all about this today. And she's also a podcast host, a proud veteran. So thank you for your service, April. And I'm just excited to have you here. You create courage for all of us. And I'm so glad that I get to borrow some of yours as I read about your life and your grit and tenacity. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I am thrilled. I am excited to be here. And I'm sorry the book made you cry. I hope it inspired you as well.
Oh, in the best way.
I have to tell you, I spent 7 years as a broadcaster in the Air Force, and you, my love, have that star quality. You have that like I feel like I'm sitting down with Oprah. I'm like, let's go.
Oh my gosh. Anytime I'm compared to Oprah, basically
Right?
my entire week is made. So it's happened one time right now. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Okay, so can I read some quotes to you from your own book? Let's just do
Sure,
story
okay.
time with April. Okay.
I love this.
One
Do
of
I
our
remember
dark.
them?
What'd you say?
Do I remember them?
Oh my gosh. If you don't remember this one, I'm going to be like blown away. Okay. This is one of my favorite quotes from your book. Our darkest times and biggest struggles often put us in the perfect place for the best thing that could ever happen to us.
So true.
I could get teary now. April, will you give us a little bit for those of us that haven't read it yet? And we're going to give one away at the end, by the way, so stay tuned. Would you give us a little background? Because it's not like you've had a cushy-cush life. It's not like everything has gone your way. And there's so much grit in your story. There's a reason that this is one of my favorite quotes from your books. Our darkest times and biggest struggles often put us in the perfect place for the best thing that could happen to us. Can you share a little bit, when you look back on your life, what would you say? There's a lot of moments that were hard in the moment but end up being a gift. Can you share one with us today?
So it's interesting. That chapter of the book, chapter 2, was really when I was really coming to realize that I was in a home environment that wasn't normal. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think when you're a child, you think that, everyone lives the way you do, or in my case, don't tell anyone the way you live because it's so scary. And my mother was struggling with addiction, and it was an abusive home. And really, I came home at 9 years old and found out that she was going to be gone for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And to be clear, Lindsay, I was afraid of my mother. And I wasn't always
Yes.
happy to be around her. But the
Yes.
idea of her not being there for 30 days at that age was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And really, for me, I thought, could this get any worse? Yet in the book, I described that an executive from the company that she worked in, and back in this day, right? So this is the late 80s. Like nobody does this. Nobody cares. There's no lead with heart. It's
No.
not acceptable. It's
No.
do your work and maybe you'll get a gold watch at the end. But this
Yep.
woman, knowing that my mom had a daughter and was a single parent, said, you know what, I'm going to be there and I'm going to explain to her what's going on. And consciously or unconsciously came and reframed it for me that this scary thing was actually one of the best things that could happen to me. That my mother
Yes.
was being incredibly brave and my life was about to get better. And because she was she was the head of human resources at a company. Up
Yep.
until that point in my life, I had never met an adult, Lindsay, who had a life I'd want. And even at 9 years old, I knew that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be you. I don't want to be you. I don't want to be you. And then I met her, and it was the first time I was like, that's a life I would like. So when she said, your life is about to turn around and become so much better, I believed her. And that belief was more powerful than anything I'd ever encountered.
That's incredible. We think of, especially as kids, our attitudes and the way that we treat children is wildly contagious. They can tell if
Oh,
we like
sure.
them, if we believe in them, if we're
Mhm.
really welcoming them. You're talking about Susan right now, right?
Aunt
Is it
Sue. Uh huh.
Susan that?
It's
Yeah,
just
Aunt
Sue,
Sue. Sue, but she became kind of an aunt and a family member for you through all the
like an
your family.
honorary. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Your family is going through real struggle and strife. The things that we read about and we go, "Oh my gosh, you were in the middle of that." And this
Yeah.
HR leader comes out of nowhere almost
Oh yeah.
and believes in you and brings you love and connection. And I think about like from our deepest pain comes our deepest passion. That
Sure.
investment, that connection that she made with you created a whole different trajectory for your life. That's wild to think
100%.
about.
Lindsay, she was the generosity culture embodied. I
Mhm.
mean, it was years and years before somebody put a name on it and trademarked it, right? But
Yeah.
that's what it was. It was, let's
Yes.
pour into our people. Oh, and I'll go another step and I'll pour into to my people's kids, right? Like, and it was
Brilliant.
just unheard of, and it was so
Yeah.
genuine and so real. And it did, it changed my entire life. I would be a different person if it were not for her. And here's the kicker. This is a Tuesday for Sue. She did that
Yeah. She's
for
just
anyone she came across. There was nothing
Mhm.
special about me in the sense that I got that offer. What was special was she said very few people followed up on it. Man, I'm 9 years old. Like, let me get out my date book and get your address. If you're serious about this friendship, let's just calendar some things.
Yeah, I love that as a kid. I love
I was so
it.
that kid.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so tell us about, the birth of the generosity culture. This is a real thing that applies to businesses right now in real time. Can you talk a bit about the generosity
100%.
culture?
So it's funny, it was a little more organic than I even realized until I was looking back in retrospect. That
Mhm.
Sue really helped me see everything through this lens. And so when I was first starting my corporate career, I'd gotten out of the Air Force. I had gotten hired at a company in the financial industry by hook and by crook. Basically, I harassed them until they agreed to let me work there.
I love
And
that.
there was this huge client issue, and no one knew what to do. They were about to lose this client, multi-million
Mhm.
dollar client. And just out of nowhere, I think of like Aunt Sue and how can I help and how can I be generous? And I'm like, send me, I'm going to go fix it. And they're literally looking at me. I'm in a boardroom full of executives, and they're like, who let her in here? Like, was she invited? But they had said, all hands on deck. I was a hand. Let's go. And
Yep.
so going up there, I really relied on all those ideas of how do I pour in? How do I show this client they're important? How do I tell them I want to help and show that? And
Mhm.
days of that, and days of candidly, Lindsay, getting yelled at because we had problems and we weren't doing things the right way. And they had every right to feel the way they did. So letting them yell at me, which that was, the military was great for that. I could take a good yelling. Okay. And now let's solve for what's going on. And I was very candid with them that I didn't have all the answers, that I was no expert, but I knew people who were, and I could make whatever they needed happen. And it was funny because literally they were going to execute their right to leave, and they gave me 2 weeks. And I'm freaking out because after 3 days the gentleman who's in charge of everything comes in here and says, April, come here. And he was like, I know we said that you had 2 weeks, before we decide if we're pulling the plug or not. But if your company's going to do this, send you here like this, we're in, we'll stay.
Hey.
And major sweat. Like I was trying to seem calm because I thought he was about to cut me loose, and I may find a
Totally.
new
Which way
job
is
when
this
I come
going?
back. Yeah.
Yep.
And what was so crazy is the generosity culture was born out of that, because I forged by fire in the sense that in that moment, this client that nobody who was much smarter and much more experienced than I was knew how to keep, it proved it out. Okay, all you do is You pour into them, you give them your time, you show them that you care, and you help. Whether that
Mhm.
means that the best thing for them is staying with you or not. And I told them that. I said, at the end of this, if you don't feel like we can take care of you the way that you deserve to be taken care of, I will help you find someone else.
Yeah.
And I meant that. And that whole idea of the generosity culture came from time and time again solving issues, whether it be with employees or with clients or finding a way to contribute to the community, always came back to that. How can I help? What can I give? How can I do something that will benefit and be of value to others?
So that's so interesting. So part of what differentiates you is that a lot of business plans are like, do these nice things for the environment, for the people, so that people stay and we save money. But you're
Right?
saying the generosity has to be pure. It has to come out of a place of no matter the outcome, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do.
It is, and it's interesting because I will not argue that when you are doing those things, it is symbiotic. You can't help but grow business. You can't help but have more clients.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help but financially reap rewards. But I look at it almost at the same way that you would if you were planting a bunch of carrots, let's say, right? You plant all these seeds. You don't micromanage each seed and look at which one is going to give you a carrot. What do? You do all the right things. You water and you weed and you fertilize and all of these things. And you trust that carrots are going to come up. You don't care which carrot, you don't care which
Yep.
right thing you do produces it. And
Yep.
that is really the main focus of the generosity culture. And oh, by the way, it just happens to be the most financially sound move you can make as a company too, whether you're looking at employee retention or you're looking at growing your customer base or not prospecting as much because customers and clients are coming to you. It is just the way to do it, but it seems counterintuitive.
Isn't that wild? That it
Hmm.
does. It's interesting to think about making the right decision for the right reason priority and
Hmm.
having. I think about this with the forward thinking leaders that I work with. We talk a lot about multiple bottom lines. That, I have to lay my head on my pillow at night. Am I going to work with a company that I really don't think cares about their employees, even as a
No,
consultant or a speaker? No, I
no,
can't do it.
it's not enough money. There isn't to
There's not
make
enough
that
money.
okay. No.
Yes. Yeah. So when you think, so let's set up a scenario. Say I
Hmm.
work with in manufacturing or
Okay.
fulfill like manufacturing something where you've got a lot of people working
Hmm.
throughout the day and night. So it's not a
Hmm.
night, it's not like a 9 to 5 job.
Right.
And I come to you and I'm an HR leader because I know we've got HR leaders here today. And I'm like, April, we are having major problems with retaining employees. They're going to this other place for 25 cents extra an hour.
Right.
How is the generosity culture going to work inside of a manufacturing company? What would you say to that?
So, what I would say is 25 cents an hour, unless you're really close to the poverty level, is not enough money to get people to make such a big change. There's something else going on. And what I would want to do is talk to folks and understand why it is that they're leaving because there's something they're not getting that they don't feel safe saying. And maybe the folks who are there are never going to feel safe to tell you. But the folks who are out the door, they don't care anymore, right? They're going to tell you what's wrong. What I would say is it's going to be things that you don't expect. It's going to be how valued they feel. It's going to be that their outputs feel like they matter more to you in a manufacturing facility than they do as a person. They
Hmm.
don't feel like they're contributing to anything big. If, let's say, for example, we're working in a manufacturing facility and they're not necessarily living the dream, this is a job, right?
Yeah.
So, how do you give them opportunities to contribute to the community around you as a whole? Because it's been proven in surveys by Great Places to Work that folks who feel like they are contributing to something bigger than their company, bigger than the bottom line, bigger than themselves, are 13 times more likely to want to come to work. Now, when you've got that person who's doing that overnight shift work, who is giving up sleep, who's missing things on their social life, how can you make that work more important and more aligned with the purpose that they have? It's a lot bigger than espresso machines and, what kind of perks they have. And how much they're getting that 25 cents an hour more. It's, do I have a sense of community? Do I have a sense of team? Do I feel like the work I'm doing matters to you and that I matter to you? And a lot of that translates to time and effort a lot more than it does actual dollars.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think when you go into organizations with the generosity culture, do you think people are more honest with you because you're not a part of the organization?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Such a leading question. I'm like, do you think that? but
Well, and it's not always for the reasons you think, Lindsay, because I've gone
Mhm.
into incredible companies run by people I very much respect and
Yeah.
admire and like. And what I find is people are more likely to tell me the truth because while the CEO may be someone I know who's super down to earth and who's like, I'm this salt of the earth person and they can tell me anything. But in their eyes, you're still the CEO. You're a
Hmm.
big deal. If you
That's
talk to
right.
them during the day, they're going to go home and tell their significant other, you spoke to them. That doesn't always breed this open communication that we want to have because that CEO sees himself as one of the team, one of the people, but they
Hmm.
don't see him or her that way anymore.
Yep. That makes sense. So even if they are down to earth and they're helpful, they may
Yeah,
not, and kind, they may not still, there's still a power dynamic there.
sure. And an admiration dynamic. And guess what? The more they like you, the less they're going to want to tell you what's wrong.
Isn't that the truth? Like they're not really
Mhm.
gonna, and that's a difference too. Like you said, with somebody who leaves, who's like, "Bam, I'm gonna say whatever I want at this point. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter." Versus somebody who's like, "I do want to be here, but I don't really want to talk about this."
Right. Let's just sweep this under the rug. Let's not talk about
Hmm.
it. And it's interesting because I have encountered in the most toxic cultures, those folks hide it the most.
Ooh,
They
say
may tell
more
you
about
one
this.
on
This is
one.
juicy.
So, and I'm just going to straight up be candid on this, and maybe you're not supposed to say it, but oh well, why are we here?
We're
Toxic
here.
cultures are like abusive families. And having come from an abusive family, I'll tell you, it's like, hey, don't tell anyone. Talk about how awesome it is. And I'm not going to call out companies, but I'm going to tell you there are companies that we think, oh man, it would be amazing to work there. That the people who work there are miserable and they hate it, but they're bought into the idea of saying how cool the company is. So when they're presenting outward, unless you're very close to them, they're going to tell you how amazing it is to work there. When deep down, they have a knot in their stomach every time they're reporting into work.
Isn't that wild? You bring up a really interesting point about how it mirrors toxic families or
Oh,
family
yeah.
patterns. This is also why I tell companies, please stop saying we're a family because half of the US grew up in
Right.
families that they don't want to be around anymore. So it's like,
Right.
I don't want another mom. I don't want another dad. I just want to work.
Right? And you're not a family, you're a team. And there's a
That's
different
right.
dynamic there. There's a choice because none of us haven't gotten stuck with somebody in our family that we wish wasn't part of the tree. And in a business, you can help people be successful sometimes the most by letting them go, work somewhere else where they're more suited.
Do you think that this minds because this goes into the other thing I want to talk to you about mindset with
Hmm.
leadership
Sure.
and kind of these shifts that I'm sure we both work with CEOs and HR leaders on around it's better to let somebody go that doesn't, but instead of trying to keep them on the bus and move them around seats, try here, try here, try here. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's better to let people go. Why? I'm curious. I want to get into mindset a little bit with you. Why do you think that matters so much, even in like today's world, the world that we're living in, where we're hybrid, dealing with, everything that's going on, potential World War III, COVID, all these things. What do you think it is about mindset that helps leaders get through all of this and navigate it?
I think mindset is incredibly important because there really is truth to the fact that life, business, whatever it is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it, how you
Yes.
decide to interpret the meaning and look for things. And mindset is particularly important for leaders because people look to leaders for solutions. And if you don't have a mindset that works for you, and notice I don't say a positive mindset because this isn't about being Pollyanna and pretending things that suck don't suck. This
Right.
is, how can I look at everything that's happening as happening for me instead of happening to me? And if you can do that, you are then searching for solutions. And remember, your subconscious mind is working for you all the time because
That's
it
right.
is doing at least 80% of the functioning for you, helping you breathe, pumping your heart, looking for things to point out to you so that you take notice of them. So if we put this in an example from a leader perspective, if I am really looking for solutions, I'm going to be able to help people at a totally different level, in a
Mm,
totally different way. If my
mm,
mindset is, how could this be working for me? And I'll use my earlier example where we were, as an organization, so upset. We're going to lose this client. This is terrible. They're so unhappy. Okay, I'm going to reframe that from a mindset perspective. We have an opportunity here to listen to someone who cares enough about our relationship to tell us they're upset instead of just revoking the contract with no opportunity to fix it. So we actually have the opportunity to hero this and to come in and fix it in such a way that we are stronger and they are more adamantly happy with us than they ever would have been if there wasn't a problem. That's mindset. You can choose to
yes.
look at it and respond that way, or you can choose to run around like a chicken with your head cut off. It's up to you, but I'll tell you which one works better, and I bet you can guess.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense too when we talk about creating cultures of feedback and we look at every generation wants more contact, more
Mhm,
feedback. I think that has to do with tech speeding up communication and expectations. But this
mhm,
idea of, oh, I don't want to ask for feedback both from leaders and teammates because our mindset is whatever the feedback I get, I'm going to feel bad about myself. So I don't really want to get feedback. It sounds like you've got a different way to think about that.
well, totally, and it's interesting because if that's the way that you feel about feedback, when people talk about mindset, they talk about a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, right?
Yes, kind of like
And
what?
it's interesting because it basically goes like this: fixed mindset bad, growth mindset good, and really not much more than that. And I would say, okay, everyone's on a spectrum of fixed to growth depending on the subject. Okay. People could say and may say in kindness, I'm a mindset guru. But if you get me on a snowy mountain and say we're going to snowboard, you're going to see me go from growth to fixed really quick. Because
Hmm.
fixed is CYA. How do I cover my ass? How do I not look stupid? How do I not get hurt? How do I not step out of my comfort zone? Whereas growth is feedback about what I'm doing poorly will make me better. So if you're afraid to get feedback, that's a really great indicator of where your mindset is on that subject. Because feedback is the gift that keeps on giving. All it does is make you better and give you an opportunity to do something at the next level. No one is perfect. No one gets it right all the time. And this is where, from a leadership perspective, leaders have got to start opening up about the things they aren't good at, about the
Hmm.
times they fail, about their bad decisions, because those are the things that make it safe for people who are really over here in the fix zone to venture over into growth zone without fearing they're going to lose their job over a failure as they navigate that path.
Hmm. That's so smart. I think it's really important. Something I learn whenever I speak to experts is context is king. That it's not just
Mm-hmm.
fixed or growth. It's in what scenario are we talking about? People ask me this about confidence. Where does confidence come from? I want to be a more confident person. I'm like, well, in what context do you want to be more
Mm-hmm.
confident? Do you want to be confident about riding a motorcycle or did you want to be
Right.
confident about speaking to your boss? Because no one is just over the top confident in every situation all the time.
No, not if it's real confidence. If it's
That's right.
false bravado, sure. But
Sure.
real confidence, mm-mm.
So when you think about, when I read your book, there is a pattern in your book. Everyone go get this book. I think Sam put it in the notes.
Oh, thanks, Sam.
Yes, on that for the Amazon link. There is a pattern in your book that gives me courage and confidence because you're bringing out the challenge 5 or 6 times. Here's the challenge that seemed insurmountable. I can't make money as a kid. I'm going to work for
Right.
Avon Cosmetics. I'm going to find a way to make that work even though I'm underage. I'm going to sneak in and make it happen.
Right.
You went
Don't
through
ask
all these
permission, ask
moments.
forgiveness.
Exactly. That's definitely your jam, which I love. There's these moments where there's a gap, an unknown. How am I going to face the unknown and do something about it? And you have flexed this muscle of exactly what you said, Get a speeding ticket, not a parking ticket. Go do it. And if you get in trouble, deal with it later. Where do
Mhm.
you think you originally got that mindset from? Like when you face the unknown, April goes, I'm in.
I think it was really situational. It was
Yep.
having an understanding at an early age that you don't have the advantages that other people have. So what can your advantage be?
Oh, I
And
love it.
I would argue that even people who have the worst situations that they grow up in, there's an advantage there. You've got to figure out what that is. And for me, it was I didn't have the luxury of being lazy or afraid. So since
That's
I
true.
didn't, okay, then let's not do that. So because most of the things that I
Mm.
did where people would in hindsight call me fearless, I was terrified. I just did it anyway
Yep.
because I didn't see another option. And
That's
I
right.
think that if someone came to me today and said, April, I can wave a magic wand and make the way that you grew up and the challenges that you encountered not have happened, I would go running in the other direction because I really feel like what I gained from that was much more powerful and
Mm.
valuable to me in what I want to do, which is help other people. Just by the fact that my upbringing wasn't super easy, I can connect at a level with people that I wouldn't be able to had it been a better upbringing. I wouldn't be able to reach them because I could not totally empathize and understand where they are. And I
Yeah.
can't empathize and understand everyone, but there are gifts in hardship.
Yep.
And the real gift of mindset is that you automatically, when you're going for what I call a winning mindset, it's not fixed, it's not growth because we're always going to move, right? Okay, so what's a winning mindset? How can I make this work for me? How can I view this in a way that makes me feel empowered instead of like a
Mm.
victim?
That is so good. I think that's really important to contextualize all of those pieces, especially because our life is complex and you're
Everyone's.
not, I get upset when people are like, you're a motivational speaker. I'm like, not really. I'm a human. I'm like, you're a human. You're going to be afraid of some things. You're going to like some things. You're going to be curious about things you're not. And I love this idea. It's like, it's not about just rah, rah, positive, everything's going to be okay. It's
No,
really breaking apart your life and being first what you said is honest with yourself, honest with
100%.
yourself about like this is where we're at. And I think that's the thing. If you need a book that helps you kind of hear somebody else's honest story, you should definitely grab this. There's a lot here. There's a lot in that book that will help. But this concept of I got to be honest with myself and kind of take an inventory of what the hell is happening, and then I can make a decision from there, and people keep
100%.
coming into your life. The other piece, the theme in your book that I thought was so good is that the right person at the right time kept coming into your life and you accepted their help, their
Hmm.
connection. They helped kind of pull you up. You weren't in it alone for long. You put
I
yourself in
don't,
situations for connection.
well, and I don't think any of us are in it alone. And I think that that can be
Yes.
a dangerous feeling is to feel like you are. And again, and I know I can turn everything to mindset, but if you believe that something is somehow going to benefit you, you are open. You're open to that person coming in and helping. You're open to that opportunity. You're open to helping someone, even if it's painful for you in the moment. And you don't know where that's going to lead. And I think
Mhm.
that the one thing that is the most dangerous about having a mindset that doesn't work for you, and the one mindset I think that works, that does not work for anyone, is blame and being a victim. And the reason is it's isolating.
Mm,
If
yes.
you are the victim, then no
Yep.
one is on your side.
Yep.
How are you going to
Right.
dig yourself out of that hole?
You nailed it. Totally agree. That idea that I got to figure this out by myself. Well, humans
Mhm.
are wildly social creatures neuropsychologically when we look at everyone, even when this is what I was sharing earlier. I was listening to April's book. I was walking my dog and I'm crying. I've never even met April. How is that possible? Because we're social creatures and
Mhm.
we can experience emotion together even if we don't even know each other. And so think about the power of having the right people around you at the right time versus trying to go it alone. We're really not biologically or socially designed to try to make it happen on our own.
I 100%. And if you find anyone that you look up to that is truly successful, and when I say truly successful, it's like I'm putting in a qualifier there because there are people who look successful, but they've literally succeeded despite themselves and they're miserable and, there's all those things.
Yeah.
But when you find someone who's truly successful, they are never going to say, I did it by myself. It's never going to happen.
That's
And they're
right.
never going to be the person poo pooing on someone else's ideas. Because
That's
the
so
people who
true.
do that, they're never going to be more successful than you are, or they will not have done what you're trying to do.
That's so good. There's like 5 or 6 major truths that you are bringing to the table today that we all needed a reset on or a reframe on, which is it's so good to hear. It's so good to be connected to you. I'm curious if you have a question. I know that some people are talking in the chat. If you have a question for April as we're talking about this, please jump in. I'm happy to ask her. I know that
No
she
questions off limits. It's live. That makes it more fun.
she said that, or she said that in an email, y'all. No question is off limits.
I
So
love
you
the
should
folks in
bring
the
it.
chat. I mean, if you see my eyes darting, it's because
Yeah.
I just love what they're sharing.
Yes, I know. It's fun. Well, and it's cool too because I think about the reason we call this the porch is because it's meant to be like neighbors
So had
getting
my
there. It
thoughts.
is. We're
Love.
like neighbors getting
I know.
together, shooting the shit, talking about stuff that matters. It's
Can
not
I be
just
a
you and
golden
me.
girl? Like, if we're going to be
Yes.
neighbors, like, I dream of being one of the
Yes.
golden girls, finding some other older women who will share a house with me in Miami. It'll be the best.
I'm in. I'll sign it now for when we're
All
80.
right,
That's great.
let's do it. It'll be so fun.
You know, that's coming back into when I look at generational research around housing, that is going to be a thing again.
Oh, I
Boomer
love it.
women are moving in with each other, which is fantastic. I'm into
Well,
it.
I want to live in a retirement community. I live in South Florida, and I got to tell you, those retirement communities are happening. They have activities. It is awesome. They've got all these things going on. Even during COVID, those folks were not bored. They may not have seen each other, but they still had stuff going on.
I have no doubt. I just love the idea of like being half taken care of and then like living, just doing the fun things and,
Yeah.
and having a built in community. It's great. I love it. Okay, I'm thinking about, it's so interesting, y'all. One of the coolest things that I've learned through COVID is when you read somebody's book and then you meet them, there's this moment where it's like, I've spent hours with you, April, but she doesn't know me from the next person. So it's always like, there's so much I want to ask you about. And I'm just going to get curious for when I read it, and I
Yeah.
think everybody will love this. There's something about writing like a memoir or stories on our own life. And in our culture, I feel like we're very distracted from doing that. I do some of that work as a speaker, as a function of being a speaker. I have to have stories to tell that matter. So I
Love
have
it.
to do some story development. But I'm so curious, what made you say, I am going to reflect on my life and take the time it takes to create a book and write these stories down? I'm curious what that process was like for you and what kind of tipped you over the edge and said, I'm writing a book about this.
Oh, it just like everything else, some person came into my life and I had posted a video of my childhood home on LinkedIn. And I didn't really think a thing of it, Lindsay. And
Mm,
I had just gone there. I was shooting some speaker videos, doing B-roll of where I came from, an interview with Aunt
yeah.
Sue. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go see my house. And it was really funny because I had not written the Magic Blue Rock book when I went there. But I remembered, oh gosh, there's the driveway where I got the rocks, right? And made them. And so I shot a video of my home. And because it's where I come from, I didn't realize how jarring it would be for people. And I got
Oh,
hundreds and hundreds of messages from people who said, oh my gosh, I grew up like that. You make me feel like I could do this. And oh, I would have been ashamed to show how poor I was. And this meant a lot to me. And I was just flabbergasted. I was shocked. And like you, I had read someone's book and become obsessed with them. The gentleman's name is Bob Berg. He and John David Mann wrote The Go Giver, which really spoke to me. And I basically had harassed him into becoming my friend. And it could have gone both ways, right?
it worked.
Friendship. But luckily, we live in the same town. He decided for friends. It was good. There were donuts involved. And
That always does it.
so he had a friend who saw that video, who I didn't know, who is huge in the boxing world, huge in the multi-level marketing world. And he reached out to me from a mentor perspective and was like, I'd just like to talk to you. And he's been doing this for 30 plus years, big shows, right? Big boxing shows, very well known, and studied under Don King of all people.
Oh my
So
gosh.
just really understands promotions and things like this. And he said, April, this story is powerful. You need to write a book. And this was August of 2020. I'm like, I got more time than normal. I could do this. And he just inspired me to tell these stories. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to tell people these stories to inspire them that they can do anything. And so I just picked those anecdotes that were at the time those things that I thought, this is huge. This is the biggest thing that's ever happened. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. Because, we do that to ourselves, right? We're like, I've never done
Hmm.
anything harder than this. So at each one of those moments, and then what was the lesson? And was it something that I thought would be valuable to someone else? And that literally became the book.
I love that. Did you work with like a therapist, or did you bounce these ideas off of somebody, or did you just sit there tactically speaking? Did you
Yeah.
just sit there and type it out and then read it and think about it?
I just typed it out. What is crazy to me to say is I wrote the book in 6 days, chapter a day, just blah, 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 blah. What I will tell you is an author's secret that you don't know until you're an author. And I'm going to share it with everyone because I like doing that. I like
I
telling
want
people stuff that they're not supposed to know.
it.
It was good. It was a good manuscript. I thought that when an author wrote a book, you wrote an amazing book. And then I found out through this process and through talking to other authors much better than me, big time authors, it becomes the book that you publish in the editing process. And so I had two edits, one that was a little lighter, and I felt like I was a rock star. And like, oh, I can write. This is great. I didn't know if I could. This is cool. And then when there was more interest in the book than I think the publisher realized there might be, like, oh, more people are going to read this. We're going to send you to this other editor. That editor made me cry.
The editor was like, slash, slash,
Well,
slash.
no, she was brilliant, but she said
Oh.
things like, April, you used the word thing 182 times in the book. There has to be a better word than thing. And it's funny because then I realized that's how I spoke, that I was always like, here's
Hmm.
the thing. And I thought, oh gosh, I can't even talk. And then she said, you need dialogue here. Describe these feelings. Take me there.
Mm.
And it just felt like, I don't know if I can do it. It feels really hard. And I'm just being honest with everyone. That is literally how I reacted. I want to be cool and be like, yeah, and I handled it and it was fine. Literally, no matter what mindset you practice, give yourself 5 minutes to whine like a baby and woe is me, and then pull up your pants and deal with it.
That's it. I want to like take that. I wish I wasn't clapping because I messed up the sound, but I want to take that bite. It's so true. From one high achiever to another. Take the time. 90 seconds, Dr. Joan Rosenberg says, take at least 90 seconds to feel the feel.
I'm
And
going to say
then
5 minutes.
where
I mean,
April's
be
being
dramatic.
generous. This is generosity culture, my friends. Feel it for 5. Go cry and then come back and we'll figure out a solution. I
Hmm.
love that is so human. I love that you said that. Okay, can I ask you some more questions that are coming in through the
Sure. Yeah,
chat?
yeah.
Do you have thoughts on going from a peer one day to a leader manager the next day? I'm thinking specifically allowing them to see you as a leader and not just a friend. Are there
Oh,
ways to
yeah.
do that gracefully? What do you think about that?
So I'm not sure how gracefully I did it, but I had that happen to
Yeah.
me in a number of roles. And to add insult to injury, if you would, I was younger and less experienced than the people that had been my peers.
Mm.
And I think what was incredibly powerful was to think of myself and for you to think of yourself as a player coach.
Mm.
So when I went into that leadership role, it wasn't you guys and me. It was, here's what we're going to do together.
Yep.
And I was very candid about the fact that some of you might be surprised that I'm the one in this chair. And some of you may have wanted to be in this chair. And what I have to say is, regardless, I want to help you be successful and I need your input for us to be successful because I don't know everything and I'm
Yep.
not the most experienced person here and I'm not going to have all the great ideas. All of us together will be unstoppable. I
Love
need
that.
your help to do this. And I think one of the misnomers for folks who are promoted from peer to leadership is they've got to come in with the hammer and be like, well, now I'm the boss and this is how it is. And I find that that really riles other people up and is much more likely to cause a mutiny than it is to really build the team. And I
Yeah.
think nothing is solved with that conversation, but the actions that genuinely reflect that matter. What are the things that those people want in their jobs? What are the things that are important to them? Just immediately start pouring into them and really, your career is all about you until you become a leader. And once you become a leader, your career is all about empowering everyone else. So the sooner you can demonstrate that you know, feel, and embody that, the sooner they're going to see you as a leader instead of a former peer.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That makes perfect sense. And I almost heard the subtext of what you were saying is you actually have an advantage because you know these people and you know what makes them tick already. So now it's time to make your career about them. I love that.
You do. You have an advantage and a disadvantage. I'm not blind to the disadvantage.
Totally.
It's
Totally.
just that you get what you focus on. So focus on the things that are enabling you to do that even better than someone else coming in cold might do. You can't
Brilliant.
please everyone, but you can absolutely show them how much you care. And ultimately, when people know that a leader cares about them, the way that they perform and the loyalty that that breeds is unlike anything else.
That is 100% true. When I was doing a lot of coaching for millennials a decade ago, they would tell me, I'll quit on my boss any day, but I will not quit on a friend. They
Interesting.
wanted to feel
Hmm.
that connection. And when they
Hmm.
do, you're tapping into their humanity versus just their productivity.
Right.
That's okay. I've got one more question for you.
Hmm.
This is a juicy juice one.
Uh oh. Get some
All right,
tea.
April.
We ready.
How do you help a friend, spouse, colleague to shift to a growth mindset without rescuing and fixing them? So you're hanging out with somebody and you realize they're stuck in a fixed mindset. They are totally stuck. And now I am stuck in this horrible conversation. So what do I do? How do I help people shift? What do you think about that?
Okay, number one, I think that is the best question in the world. And I think that anyone who tells you that you really can help them shift their mindset is lying to you. But let me
Mm-hmm.
explain. You can't help or assist them do anything, but you can inspire them to do everything. So, what I mean is, there is actually nothing more grating and irritating when you're in a really bad mindset than someone who isn't. People you love, you might choose to chop their head off in that moment, right? So when someone is there and they're stuck,
Yep.
nothing you say or do to them, about them, for them is actually going to change anything. However, because and ultimately it comes down to words don't teach. We can't tell someone how to be different, but you can inspire them. And what I mean is this: you can share with them similar things that you struggle with and how you changed the way you look at it and what that meant for you. And not in a preachy way. Usually, I would suggest only doing it if they ask you, but
Mm-hmm.
powerfully watching you change. And I think we all underestimate how much attention people pay to what we do and overestimate how much attention they pay to what we say. So if you are living that mindset that works for you, if they are someone who would ever be open to moving from here to here, they're going to ask you questions. There's going to be an opening. That's the way that you can help them, by inspiring them to ask those questions and not giving them your thoughts or advice when they haven't asked for it, because that ends really badly. Don't ask how I know. I did all
I have
this
a
the wrong way
feeling.
first. I did all this the wrong way first because you want everyone to be happy and you want them to be in this better place, but you can't do it for them. But you can demonstrate what life could be like if they did, and then they will move towards it. It's going to sound silly, but think of it as if you really want to play with a puppy or a small child that's shy. You go rush at them and they don't want anything to do with you. But if you sit quietly over here having a good time, having fun, doing the things that they might think are interesting, notice how that puppy or child will creep over. Mindset is the same way.
Fantastic. I will always remember the small puppy thing because I love dogs.
Right? Same here.
That's it. That's it. This has been, April, I've been looking forward to this for months. I think that you are just an incredible human, and I'm so glad that people got to be a part of our conversation today. And
I am
that
thrilled. Thank you.
Yes, and that we'll have this available. Bring this to your team. Listen to this on your next walk. We'll have it as a podcast and as a YouTube video if you want to see our expressions on our face while we've been talking. I love that.
Watch us drink our tea in our porch cups.
That's right. If you want to see this bad boy, you got to watch the YouTube. But we want to do, before we go, we thought of this fun game to play.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot. I'm so thrilled.
Speaking of dogs, I love this. No, I'm so into games. This is my jam. So April has a dog. Her dog's name is...
Let's tell them what they get first.
Okay, tell them what they get. This is your jam.
So I'm going to give you guys what I call a Magic Blue Rocks box. So I'll give you a personalized autographed hardcover copy of the book, a Magic Blue journal, a Magic Blue pen, your own Magic Blue rock, a special surprise. It'll make sense to you as you read the book because these are all going to be things to enable you to do the things you really want to do. So I'm super excited to give it to someone on the call today.
Yes! Okay, so you're going to get a personalized gift from April. And you only have to do one thing, so I'm glad everybody's jumping in the chat and saying thank you because y'all, your fingers are ready to go. Here's the deal. April has a dog named Cowboy. Cowboy has an official role and title in her company. Can you guess what his official title is? Take a guess in the chat. We love this game.
That's close.
Oh gosh, we're so close.
Okay, he's got
everybody's
right.
close.
2 things right. CCO is the closest. Oh, it is
CCO.
so close. He is in the C-suite.
He is in the C-suite.
He's a chief something officer.
Yes, we're very close, Barrett.
Oh goodness, this is so good. Chief
oh gosh,
officer,
I'm sweating.
You're over.
Come on, everybody.
Guys. Cowboy is a.
What is Cowboy? He's. What is he, guys?
What's the
ladies? Oh, dog officer Jill Carroll. Oh my gosh.
Great.
This
were
was
amazing.
Y'all, this just tells us what everybody thinks about dogs.
Chief Corgi, Chief Cowboy. These are amazing.
We have a backup name. I'm going to name. I love it. Jill Carroll, you nailed it. Chief Dog Officer. Sam, will you grab Jill's info? I know we probably already have it because Jill's in our world. So this is so fun. I love, somebody picked horse. I love it. This was a great.
So good. It was so good though.
This is fantastic. You have a bunch of ideas now. We obviously all love dogs on this call, which was an important part of our conversation.
Well, and I only trust dog people. Like people
Thank
who don't like dogs, I don't trust them.
I'm sorry, but if you are on the porch and you don't like dogs,
get off the porch.
I mean, we're not opposed to cats. We're just saying if you hate dogs.
But you can like cats and like dogs.
You can like both.
Cats, fine. But if you don't like animals, I don't trust you.
I 100% agree. We are in alignment with that. This was so fun, April. Thank you for your time and your energy. You inspire me to be generous, to be thoughtful, to be nuanced in the way that I think about growth and mindset. So thank you for taking time to be with us today. It means the world to me.
Thank you. And thank everybody else who joined. You guys investing your time is a huge gift. I so appreciate that. You guys have an awesome week.
Yes. Thank you, April. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody. Hey, follow April on LinkedIn, too. Go find her last name. You'll be able to find her quick. Yes. All right, friends. Thank you so much. Thank you, April. We'll talk soon.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.